By November 1863, the guns at Gettysburg had fallen silent, leaving behind a scarred, fog-drenched expanse of disturbed earth. The sheer scale of the carnage presented a problem for the nation's leadership. How could any speaker find words that could account for this level of loss? When Abraham Lincoln arrived to speak, his delivery was unexpectedly brief. He finished so quickly that photographers covering the dedication did not have time to set their cameras and capture him at the podium. The entire speech, seen here in these 2 handwritten pages, consists of just 10 sentences, totaling 272 words. This short document did more than memorialize the dead. It used the occasion of a funeral to change how the United States explained the purpose of the war to itself. Lincoln begins by pulling his audience's attention away from the current bloodshed and toward the origins of the country. He uses the phrase 87 years ago. Since a score is 20 years, 87 years before 1863 lands precisely on 1776. This date is significant. By pointing to 1776, Lincoln bypasses the legal complexities of the Constitution and instead grounds the nation's identity in the philosophical arguments of the Declaration of Independence. He highlights a single proposition from this text, that all men are created equal. He presents this concept as the original blueprint that the country was designed to follow. Centering the Declaration allowed Lincoln to frame the Civil War as a test of whether a nation built on a shared idea, rather than just geography, could survive the pressure of internal collapse. After setting these high historical stakes, Lincoln brings the audience back to the visceral reality of the ground beneath their feet. Thousands were gathered in this landscape to officially dedicate a portion of the battlefield as a final resting place for the soldiers who died there. During the ceremony, Lincoln introduces a contradiction. He tells the crowd that despite their gathering, the living cannot dedicate, cannot consecrate, and cannot hallow the ground. He creates a hierarchy between speech and action. He argues that the words spoken that day are fleeting, while the physical acts of the soldiers who struggled there are what truly changed the nature of the field. By framing his own words as secondary, he emphasizes the magnitude of the soldiers' deaths as something permanent and unalterable by any politician's speech. This logic shifted the focus of the event. If the ground was already made sacred by the dead, the living no longer had to focus on honoring the past. They had to focus on the responsibilities of the future. This realization leaves the audience with a question. If their words and ceremonies cannot hallow the ground, what is their actual role in the conflict? Lincoln directs the purpose of the gathering away from the dead and toward the survivors, arguing that the real act of dedication belongs to those who are still alive. He defines this as the unfinished work. This diagram shows his logic. The deaths on the battlefield created a debt that must be paid through the continued political effort of the citizens who remain. He calls for a new birth of freedom, a phrasing that suggests the country cannot simply return to the way things were before the war. It requires a reconfiguration of national values to move forward. The speech functions as a mobilization order. It tells the public that the only way to ensure the dead did not die in vain is to ensure the survival of the democratic experiment through their own actions. He concludes with the requirement that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. This closing thought returns to the 1776 proposition of equality, linking the survival of democracy directly to the success of the Union's war effort. In 272 words, Lincoln turned a burial ground into a statement of national intent, providing a fractured country with a specific definition of democracy that has remained a reference point for over a century.